Our guest today is Ganesh Padmanabhan, founder and CEO of Autonomize AI.
People underestimate how things can change over a long period of time.
You have so many opportunities that you're excited.
My perspective as my company and Autonomize AI, how we're doing and what we've seen in other successful companies as well, right?
When you're approaching how a nurse solves a patient's problem and how a doctor solves a problem, we are talking about healthcare.
Change is inevitable, right? It's going to change. Like we talked about, the world is going to be very different post AI, and change has been there for a long time.
But I want immigrants to remember that the ideas we're sharing translate across every platform of how we live life, right?
It's important that now when you can do almost anything, right? Think about it. Knowledge and effort is now democratized with AI, right? You want to write a letter, you don't have to hire a letter writer. You can just use this thing, right? You want to write code and build a website, you can just instruct a model to actually go do it. You want to understand the knowledge that is in the Greek philosophy, you can extract that out of these models from as weights. So when that happens, I think the biggest thing that is going to be true to you as a human is going to be your agency, where you decide to put your attention on.
All right, welcome to the Immigrant Pod. Could AI lower the barriers, create new businesses, and give first and second generation immigrants new ways to build wealth and security? These and many interesting questions we plan to explore in today's episode. A Radical Immigrant, a platform by the Immigrant Nation podcast. For millions of immigrants, the conversation around AI can feel confusing, technical, and borderline frightening. I migrated for a reason, and AI is making that really confusing. Technically, yeah and no. The reasons are null and they're also void. Will AI eliminate opportunities? Will it create opportunities? I am so glad that you've joined today to listen to this wonderful conversation. And I know I'm being preemptive, but I know this is going to be fun for all of us. Our guest today is Ganesh Padmanabhan, founder and CEO of Autonomize AI, a company developing artificial intelligence systems for healthcare operations, is revolutionizing the industry. To give us the inside scoop, Ganesh, as the founder and host of Stories AI, what's been a radical idea that has a seismic shift in how you think and how you see things that you've heard from one of the many CEOs in the AI field that have come to your show?
Martin, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's awesome to be here, and I've followed the podcast and I've listened to many other immigrants. So it's awesome to be here. You ask about stories in AI, which is one of my passion projects that I started in the middle of COVID, and the whole thing happened where I have the fortune of being in AI for a really long time. Like I've worked in AI across research, across applied AI, multiple industries and stuff. And it's not that I forecasted what is happening today, but I knew that it was, like we were talking before the starting the recording, it is people underestimate how things can change over the long period of time and overestimate how things change in a short period of time. AI was one of those things, right? Where, in 2017, 2018, I was building another company. We were building AI, and it was really hard because we had to educate people on AI. And people were like, yeah, it's just better math. It's just better, ways of doing things. But then we saw like how this just exploded in the last 3 or 4 years, right? And it was just a matter of time. So Stories in AI was an attempt at increasing the dialogue on AI, where you can invite people from all around the spectrum who are going to be building AI, who are going to be affected by AI, who are guiding and guarding AI, and all of that stuff. So we started a podcast just like this in the middle of COVID. I ran it for about 3.5, 4 years, kind of like put it on pause last year, just become extremely busy with what we're building right now with Autonomize, and excited to talk to you about that. But we like I interviewed over 120, 130 people. We had a lot of really good discussion, and I learned a lot. Also, I used it as a way to during the middle of, when the COVID shutdown happened, I'm a pretty social guy. I like to go out, meet people, have dialogues and stuff too. And I was talking to a screen. I was still doing keynote speeches, but it was onto a screen, right? Because the whole world was shut down. So I use this as a forum very selfishly to just learn from other people, to inspire myself when I talk to people who are way better than me and who understand this particular space. So it was very, very educational for me, and I wanted to just promote that to the rest of the folks, because AI is one of those, I mean, we're seeing it already. Even 3 years ago, 4 years ago was not so evident. But I fundamentally believe there was a foundational technology that is going to change the face of humanity. How we experience it, how we live, how we communicate, how we co-work with AI, all of this is going to change way more than we all give it credence to. So it was important that every people from all walks of life were brought into the dialogue to have that conversation. That was what I was trying to do with Stories in AI.
Very interesting. I'm so glad you utilized the platform you had to be able to find a way to find yourself and to find a way to channel your energy and to channel how you interact with the future. For millions of immigrants who are still struggling, that they have not found the path of how to start solving for X, what is a no-no when it comes to AI that they need to know?
Look, I mean, think of AI as, or 3 years ago, if you'd say, what is an AI? I was just a tool. Just use it to do something. You want to extend, you want to look at a picture and identify objects in the picture. You want to look at a text and understand what the text says. You want to look at a video and, map out what is happening in the video. Used to be you will use a machine learning tool or an AI model to go do that, right? Today, what has evolved into is this, think of it as if you're not just as an immigrant, but if you're anybody, any human being, any walk of life, AI becomes a way that, if we just take a step back and think about it, humans have far exceeded our ability to understand, comprehend, and make decisions on everything that is happening around the world, right? All the social norms that we do, all the way we live life and make decisions and stuff are based on trickles of information that we were able to comprehend in our brain and talk through and think through and stuff like that. That's not today's world. Mm-hmm. The information has exploded. You have so many senses, just the amount of time my kids spend scrolling through Instagram. I mean, just like so much content out there. So you need a mechanism to distill that out and make sure that you're focused on the signal and not the noise, right? AI is a great use of that, right? I mean, you can use AI as a exoskeleton to improve, people say improve your productivity, but just improve your signal to noise ratio, right? You can just say, instead of actually looking through every single article that you want to leave and read, and you're bookmarking, nobody reads it, is to just go put it on in a Claude or a ChatGPT or any of these models or a self-hosted model, summarize it for you so you know where to actually spend your attention on, right? So as an example, that's one way to think. So to your question on what is one thing that the misconception, or like what can you do with AI that it's an unknown today? I think you have to treat we've evolved into a world where you have to treat as a necessary infrastructure layer for you to lead a better life. AI is a necessary infrastructure layer to lead a better life. And it's a very strong statement, right? There's a lot of folks that I know. I was reading Christopher Nolan, the director, still doesn't have a smartphone and doesn't use email, right? I mean, like, yes, you can live under the rock, but it's going to be increasingly difficult for the average, citizen to do that, right? So it's not so much about you versus AI, it's you and AI. So think about it from a perspective, like, how can I do, I have another thoughts on this, right? So everybody is uniquely gifted on something. They're almost always the 99th percentile on something. For most people, it is a journey through their entire life finding out what they're good at, right? That's just the reality. But if you find that, then you have an exoskeleton like AI. You put that on, and you can just supercharge that thing that you're really good at, right? So as an individual, the way you should think about it is like lot of self-reflection on finding out what am I really great at, better than 99% of the population that I know, and then go supercharge that with AI, because AI now can really do almost everything a human does in terms of performing tasks. The judgment and experience and all of that stuff still comes from the human, but you can direct that if you know where to apply that. But you need to know yourself first.
I am so at awe that you say this, because last night I was online chatting with a family member who's really struggling with the idea of AI, right? And she chooses to, or opt to not, to try to not use AI. I think she's misinformed, but however, she chooses to not use it for environmental reasons or concerns, right? Um, and as we were talking, something really profound hit me, and I went back to my notes and I realized I had heard it from you. And that was problem selection, right? That she has not identified her role really inside of today's world, and how to partner or use AI in getting life done faster, and is really hiding behind the mosaic of this is how we used to do life, not knowing that AI has been around for over 17 years. And so, even pointing that, hey, the way you use Word today or the way you use Excel today, that's all AI. But let's put it aside. Let's talk about problem selection.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think there's a few thoughts that come to mind, right? One is like, look, I mean, in every part of history, whenever there is change, I mean, change frightens people, right? And I think, same thing happened when the Industrial Revolution happened. Same thing happened when, democracy happened. I mean, think about like when you had to wake up and all you had to do is follow the rules from a king, and now you have to participate in the process. Change is always scary, right? So it's just kind of like, so for then the internet happened when it opened up the ability for us to find out like I can get connected with somebody thousands of miles away, and there's communication mechanism. I don't have to wait for a ship to actually carry a letter, or a plane to actually get a letter and put it through the postal service. So what happened in all of and I'm pretty sure if you go back in history, during any of these times when there was a revolutionary technology or a step change that changes the way people live, there was always people who were afraid of it and who did not want to use it. And then eventually they start seeing the positives on that, and they start using it. Now, very rarely, I mean, you'll have, like we were talking about, like Nairobi in Africa, right? Like, very rarely people are there without connectivity. There are still a lot of people who don't have connectivity, and I understand that. But the general norm is like, you take it for granted that I can call whoever I want to. You take it for granted I can reach and talk to somebody when my mom is living 9,000 miles away, and I can call her at my evening and it'll be her morning. And it's just norm. We actually have evolved like that. I think the point in time in AI, we're not there yet. And that's the real problem, right? Which is like, when people start seeing more and more of how AI is in their everyday life, to your point of using Excel spreadsheets or Word, you like it or not, your AI is embedded in almost everything we do. I mean, just the fact that you go into a website and that when you type that URL, you're not being redirected to a random hacker site to go do that, is an AI that isn't worked from a Cloudflare or one of these companies who's put an AI to make sure that consumers are protected, as an example, right? AI is there, and it's just in different forms. Now, we may not call it AI, we may call it something else and stuff too. But the whole notion of artificial intelligence being, look, how do I actually take the human cognition of the task that is associated with human cognition, including creativity and stuff, and apply that to machine learning, or like have systems do it, right? So to your question on problem selection, depends on what you're trying to do, right? I mean, the beauty of this time right now is like, intelligence is accessible as an API for sense for a token, right? In sense for token, right? It's so cheap. Imagine, if you had to, at the lowest, simplest level, you had to go understand philosophy or Socrates' philosophy. You had to take a bus, go to the library, get the book, read those books and stuff like that. Now what do? You just open up Chat GPT or any of these, or Kimi K3, whatever, and then you go ask the question, and it's just going to parrot out whatever data is there about in the internet about this particular thing. Apply that same logic to almost everything we do. You now have an intelligence layer that can be used as a co-pilot, as an assistant, as a as a sidekick, that you can just almost instruct and you get the results. There's a lot of technical nuances and all of that stuff too. So problem selection to me is like two things. Like if you're an individual, you're trying to live a better life, and you want to do things that are like that wasn't possible or took too long, or like just define that, and now you have an exoskeleton you can use to do that, right? If you're in the business and you're actually trying to solve problems, it could be something extremely low tech. You're a plumber trying to actually get by and getting appointments. Well, now you can actually not have to worry about having a receptionist who will take calls and all of that stuff. You can use AI to do all of that stuff, so you can focus on what you do, which is plumbing, right? So things like that, again, back to my 99 percentile, you're 99 percentile of something. Just go and make sure you automate everything else and focus on that something that you're really great at, and then scale that. And that's the opportunity today with AI, right? So I think there's it's a lot of parallels, and I don't know whether I'm really answering your question, what you're asking, but problem selection comes from different ways, from that perspective.
You really kind of broadened on it really well, and I do appreciate that. A few years ago, I want to say maybe 2, 3 years ago, there was this excitement in society where if you saw a Tesla truck, it was like, wow, what is that vehicle that just passed me, right? And so I was talking, I think my son was 13. So yeah, it's 2 years ago. And we were talking, and I said, dude, you realize there was a time when there was not a single car and there were no roads, right? And somebody came up with a vehicle, and it had four wheels with a little engine, and it wasn't going very fast. But can you imagine when that car passed a horse and buggy, what they said? And so there are those who were frightened, there were those who were excited. And I said, those who benefited from that evolution were the ones who were excited, because they started looking at how do we change our lives around the change that is happening, right? How do we adapt to the change that is happening? For immigrants who feel that way, they feel left behind, they feel a little confused, or they're really excited. How should they direct their energy?
you know it's interesting. I think change is inevitable, right? It's going to change, like we talked about. The world is going to be very different post AI than it was before. And then, like, it's the and change has been there for a long time, all through history, like the horse and the buggies to automobiles to highways, to actually move things around, to not having to walk long distances, to airplanes, to supersonic airplanes. I mean, it's just going to conference calls, right? Like, you just don't have to be in person, you can have a conversation. So you've evolved so much. The big thing right now, what is happening is that the change has always been constant, but the rate of change has accelerated. Back to my point, earlier, something happens, it trickles down through the society, gets to the people who are in the alley, then goes to somebody else, then it goes to this thing, to your local community leaders. Then by the time it gets to you, it has already ironed out all the problems in that particular original innovation. It actually works really well, and it's more palatable. People have figured out how to tell the story and so forth. Today, information is ubiquitous. Somebody launches a new architecture for machine learning, like world models or something, the research community and everybody can access it in a matter of minutes. The moment that it's published, it's available for everybody. So I mean, the change at which innovation diffuses right now is incredible, right? So that causes
Mhm.
a couple of problems. One is, you have to have a learning mindset to take advantage of it rather than fight it, right? And it is going to be, I'm not saying it's all perfect. I mean, there are so many things that we use AI, like our entire company. I like to say that Autonomize AI is an autonomous company. I mean, we do a lot of these things, and it's a shared living intelligence that we have in the way people operate, in the way we serve our customers, in the way we actually impact patients. And it is a, living intelligent layer of, people and AI and tools and stuff like that. We still get things, we still, it's not perfect, right? So you're going to always have the lack of perfection in the way you think about it. But if you wait for things to be perfect, you will actually be on the receiving end of whatever change is actually happening, right? You want to be a part of it, you want to direct it, you want to engage in it, and you want to see how you can create an unfair advantage for yourself before it becomes commonplace, right? It's like people who figured out how to do, I don't know, like, driving, made a lot of money before cars became ubiquitous and driving schools came about, right? So you always should look at, when you have this amazing pace of change and the scale of change is huge, it's presenting opportunities. And if you're, an immigrant or a young person and getting into the workforce, or a student, you should look at this as this golden era where you can redefine the future that you want to. Because earlier you were set to the limitations of physics and how things work and all of that stuff, how things are said and done. All of those rules are getting challenged and going out of the window. So you can now really reimagine a future that you want to build. And I think it's not, on the one hand, I'll say, like, I've been spending a lot of time on philosophy and stuff too, right? It's not that different than how, philosophers used to define things. Now, you just have better tools today. You just have better methods to do it today. But it's also incredibly harder because the distraction level is through the roof. I mean, nobody can actually sit and do something, write something for 20 minutes anymore. So there's a lot of that thing that, makes it harder, but it's the moment of opportunity. It's the space of opportunity. Right now, there is like the cat's out of the bag and all those capabilities. The diffusion is still not there. I mean, like, it's, yes, people use ChatGPT and all of that stuff. There are so many industries, so many use cases, so many opportunities in front of us. So you just have to hone in and look at this and say, have the abundance mindset, right? Instead of saying, how is it going to affect me and how I get defensive, it's more about, like, now that I have this, what else can I do, right? So just having that framing of an abundance mindset will go a long way. If you're, and back to our earlier conversation on immigrants, I mean, generally, like, you're uh, not always, but you're coming to this country for better opportunity, for better, you know, um, uh, better lifestyle, better political system. I don't know about that, but, sure. So, or better social structures and all of that stuff. And this is like an amazing opportunity because you have a set of tools that nobody in the history had to go and make the most out of the opportunity handed to you, right? So go at it, go fast.
I was in East Africa a while ago and I looked at how they move money. It's just phenomenal how quickly their transactions are. I mean, in some cases, I thought their transactions were faster than our transactions here. And you go to Central Africa and you go to China, and the same thing. The speed at which we're chatting on WeChat is incredible fast. And so with these tools, they are in our hands. They are our phones, they are our laptops or iPads. With those tools, what is a beautiful way by which those of us who have access to them can bring our talent, our ideas to the marketplace?
No, it's a good point. It's a good thing. I mean, yes, we live in a very privileged world. Some of us, at least. I mean, a lot of people, mostly people in the Western world, but also, like, the prosperity is, I was in China 3, 4 weeks ago, and it's incredible just the progress they've made over the last time I was there was 10 years ago. It was just incredible to watch how, every part of the society, everything is very, I mean, like the China that you hear about in the Western news is very different from the China that's actually out there, right? Very different. And to your point on, like, hey, you now have these tools, you now have all of these amazing things, and you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to actually do it. How can you make it? I think, look, it's important that, now when you can do almost anything, right? Think about it. Knowledge and effort is now democratized with AI, right? You want to write a letter, you don't have to hire a letter writer. You can just use this thing, right? You want to write code and build a website, you can just instruct a model to actually go do it. You want to understand the knowledge that is in the the Greek philosophy, you can extract that out of these models from as weights. So when that happens, I think the biggest thing that is going to be true to you as a human is going to be your agency, where you decide to put your attention on. To your question on how can we do this, well, pick a problem that is going to be worth something. Like, the reason we built Autonomize to focus on healthcare. Like, so I'm founder CEO of Autonomize AI. What we do is actually we think healthcare is really challenging for around the world. Like, just to look at the stat, it's not just a US problem, although we're heavily focused in the United States. We have 330 million people in the United States. We have less than 1 million doctors serving all of them. We have less than 4 million, 4.5 million, about 5 million nurse and nurse practitioners who are supporting them for a population of 330. You extend that to the rest of the world, it is even worse. So there is the access to real high quality care, if you assume that will require trained professionals who can deliver care. We don't have that trained professionals on the one hand around the world. And we can't produce doctors and nurses fast enough. An average doctor's education to become an MD in the United States take at least 9 to 10 years. And there is no way the population growth is going to outgrow the rate at which we produce more doctors, if you will, right? So when that happens, so one of the things we do, and then on top of that, if you're in the US, for example, the doctors and nurses spend 60% of their time doing administrative BS, right? Where like it's typing up forms, submitting authorization requests to insurance companies, reviewing charts and actually finding out, just hunting for information, like dealing with payment agencies, all of that stuff. So what we did was actually, instead of giving another product that'll do one thing with AI, we were like, look, how do we reimagine AI as an infrastructure layer to change the way healthcare operates in the country and around the world. So what we've been able to do is actually go to an enterprise that employs thousands of nurses and doctors and trying to serve millions of patients. We unlock about 60-70% of their productivity by automating and autonomizing that mundane things that humans don't have to worry about, like getting information from 5 different systems to understand what is the risk of a patient, getting information from payment policies and medical necessity policies, to summarizing what is the right course of care for a patient, right? Or coordinating with appointment setting, like a doctor says, hey, this patient, there are so many chronic diseases that we have, where United States is the kingdom of chronic diseases like diabetes and stuff too. A lot of the ways to solve it as a, not just for individuals but also as a society, is proactive preventative care. So making sure that you manage your A1C, hemoglobin A1C, keep your appointments, make sure you're taking your medications on time, make sure you're changing your lifestyle, your food, all of that stuff. And we don't treat it that way, right? It's when you're sick, you go to a doctor, you do this, they give you something, and you go, and then you're left in the world and the wild, whether you take your medications, whether you follow up, you show up for the follow-up appointments, all of that is left to chance right now. But you can have AI do all of that stuff, so that when they show up, the doctor is not looking at a screen. If you go to a doctor in the United States, they spend more time looking at the screen than looking at you today. It's unfortunate, right? That can be turned around. So to your point on how do you solve it, you pick problems like this. And then you now have all the tools in the world, all these LLMs and the models and the technologies in a place that you can apply this at scale to make huge impact. We've been able to, like I said, we were able to unlock like 60-70% productivity gains for clinical people in these large health enterprises. We saved about 33,000 clinical hours for nurses in one company in a month. 33,000 hours, the large company, right? So we were able to, reduce the cost of actually, managing an entire population by just focusing them on closing what they call care gaps, right? Like, so understanding, hey, this is a patient who is about 40 or about 45, and they need to get their colonoscopy scheduled so we prevent any of the occurrences of colon cancer and so forth. You got to follow up, you got to get them into the thing, get the procedure done, go through this whole thing. You can use AI to make that process a lot more efficient. So how do you solve this? How do you bring the prosperity or the opportunity to more people who are not as lucky or not in this thing? Do this. Like, if you have access to this, you go dedicate your life to solving this problem, and you now have the tools. And then pick the problems. Back to your earlier question on problem selection, you can do so many things in your life. Don't waste it on dumb things and stupid problems that you're going to solve. Solve the most impactful problem that's going to have the most amount of impact. Like, we could have done an AI company to do better advertisement targeting. We could have done better AI company to just do better marketing copies. I'm not saying those are wrong things, but the biggest impact you can make on humanity, improve the human condition, improve their health, right? You have the opportunity to do it with AI. So we chose it, and we just went in and we started doing that, right? So do that. Get passionate about a problem, and there's no more excuses in this world, right? You can do almost anything you want, anything, right? No more excuses, right? I think just solve the most, but your agency to pick the right problem and stay with it and having the grit to see it through is going to make all the difference.
The possibilities are endless, but they're also frightening. I mean, like you just said, you have so many opportunities that you're excited, and sometimes you lose a root cause of how you want to proceed. There's something to be said about our existing infrastructure, right? Like, if I am a carpenter, how do I build on what I do best now utilizing AI, and how can I find a tool or improve on the tools that we already have and bring that to the marketplace, right? And I think that's kind of where you're going. Um, that said, let's talk about the evolutions of an organization, and specifically for autonomous AI. What has been the evolution for your organization when it comes to solving for healthcare?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think, look, like I mentioned, right, you now have an exponential way to someone who was a 10x engineer can now be a 100x engineer, right, with AI. So, and then there's a way to think about it. And I think I've seen this, I'll give you from my perspective as, my company and Autonomize AI, how we're doing and what we've seen in other successful companies as well, right? One, you got to embrace it as a way to increase or reduce cycle time of getting work done. You have to embrace it as a method to improve productivity, of course. And then most importantly, you have to embrace AI as a method to solve the problems that earlier was not possible to solve, or it was not economical to solve. You have to put a lot of time and a lot of things in it, right? So there is a class of things where, like, hey, what we do really well, go double down and increase the productivity layers so that the cycle time is reduced and the efficiency is increased. Then you have a class of problems that are like, this usually takes 6 months to solve, or this cannot be solved. Go solve that. And you have to have both of that thing. You can't just treat AI as a cost-cutting mechanism. You also have to look at it and saying, how do I increase my TAM or the market opportunity with what I now can do that I couldn't have done? So, and then there's a few different elements of that. Number one, you have to make sure that everybody is bought in, educated, and excited about using these tools. And that includes things like you're rolling out tools for all the entire employees. Everybody has access. I mean, I would say all of our employees across, irrespective of whether in engineering or in product or in growth and go-to-market or operations, have access to some of the best models so they can actually improve their own productivity. Then you have things where you actually surgically start looking at how are some of these processes done. For example, we noticed that our client partners spend about 6 to 7 hours doing reporting with customers, because they're pulling information from multiple projects and stuff like that. We changed that whole thing by just automating that whole reporting structure. Like, where you have these powerful LLMs that are actually connected to all these systems. They can describe and define what good looks like. and they still are responsible for quality of making sure the output is actually exactly the way, but they don't spend 6 hours doing it anymore. They spend 30 minutes doing it, right? So there's that, you start looking across your business, say, look for opportunities where you can now reduce the cycle time, increase efficiency. We used to have, like, we would do these managed deployments for these large customers, which used to take us 4 engineers or 4 people over a period of 3 months to do. We flipped that whole script. Now it happens with 4 agents, AI agents, with one person overseeing it, and in less than 30 days, right? Same process, but then we just reimagined it when, in the age of AI. And then there is the class of problems that I said, like, you have to start looking at it and say, how do you, what are the things we were not able to do before? And it could be things like, to go into a new sub-market in healthcare, for example, we went from health plans and health enterprises to providers to life sciences. It would have traditionally taken, we got to build a whole product set that is new. You got to build a whole go-to-market team. You got to go build this whole thing, and it'll take 6 months, 12 months, 18 months to go into a new market. It takes us 30 days because, you can do a lot of, you make a lot of assumptions, you can build product faster. You can get feedback faster if you know how to engage. It's still very human. It's not automated with AI doing this. And then now you can hack down, like, the cycle time for running a hypothesis and seeing if it is actually true, running an experiment and getting the data off that experiment is much, much, much faster today, right? So I think, there's a class of problems that we did. How do you go into this new market? How do you understand this new buyer pattern? Is there a different way to actually, think about pricing for outcomes for some of the things that we're doing? All of those class of problems would have taken, a lot of time, or like we wouldn't have been able to figure out. Now we can figure it out, right? Including, science, you can do, like, finding new molecules to do things and so forth. All of this will make a huge impact on how we operate. The bigger thing that organizations have to evolve it is not so much whether, and like, there's all these organizations who are complaining that AI is not good enough, it can't do all of these things and stuff. Back to our conversation of being negative. But those things will get better. I mean, if you remember the December 2022 ChatGPT version, I wrote a book with my son at that time, like, during Christmas. It was terrible. The ChatGPT was very terrible. GPT, I think it was like 2.0 or something, and it was very terrible. To now, the same model, same instruction, it has gotten so much better. It'll write better prose than most, than Shakespeare maybe, right? So the capabilities will get better, right? It's just going to happen. All the things that FSDs, people laughed about Tesla full self-drive. I haven't driven actively on the road in the United States in my car for the last 2 years. Or I drive, but I don't drive. I just put it on FSD. So I think technology will get better. What we need to really start thinking about it, how do we as organizations and individuals get better at working with technology? So what does that mean? In an organization, when everything is being produced by AI, there is a tendency for AI slop. You start it, you ask, these models are incredibly good at making you feel good, right? So you instruct a model and say, give me an output for this. And then it's got 2 goals. One is make you happy. Second is keep you engaged, just like social media. So the first, it'll give you an output, and then it'll ask you a follow-up question. Hey, do you also want me to do this? And then naturally we are engaged. We're saying, yeah, sure. So before you know, the small problem that you're trying to solve is now overcomplicated by this thing, and you get a lot of slop. So one such thing that we did was actually, look, if it takes more for you to read the output than it took for you to instruct the model, 99% of the time that's slop. That's not worth it, right? If you are putting more time, so we do things like share the prompt you used instead of actually giving me the output. Let me understand the assumptions you're making, all of that. So you got to really think about this, the people side of this. How do you instruct? I mean, a lot of things that we notice is like, when more and more you're using AI, and AI is a sycophant, it makes you feel better, right? Tells you you're always right. You go to ChatGPT, it tells you you're even more right than any other models, right? You go to Gemini is going to tell you, oh man, well, Martin, you're the best. Let me tell you this, right? Claude is a little better, but still, it's all the same. What is done to workforces, people are getting less and less, comfortable with conflict. right? Because it's psyche. You're dealing with AI 90% of your day. And then you're not raising a real problem that's out there. So a lot of things we do is like internally, how do you seek conflict? How do you challenge each other? And yes, AI is actually doing it. Just increase the temperature in the room a little bit, right? So I think, and this translates outside enterprises and organizations, right? As a society, we're going to go into this world where a lot of the work is going to be performed by AI. How do we redo our social engineering principles to work in a way that maximizes our potential, maximizes our output, enjoyment, whatever you want to call it? It's going to require a lot of work. It's going to require a lot of work on self, on the society, on the people, and how we operate with AI. I think that's the message I have, right? So, and we're seeing this as a microcosm inside organizations, but it's true for humanity.
By the way, I have a confession that I'm going to marry with my question, right? So I'm very health conscious about myself because I do come from a line where if I look at my ancestors and the causes or reasons as to why they died, I can see a trail of diabetes in that line, right? And so I'm very conscious of what I'm putting into my mouth and have been for a bunch of years until AI got here. And now I'm almost like I have a partner that we move back and forth in health. And when I used to input or seek information on Google, it's not the same today. Today is like I put this and it goes back. Oh, by the way, Martin, in March of last year, you said ABCD. And based on the data I have for you, this is where we are. And this is the conversation you need to have with your physician. So it's made my experience with my caregivers really interesting because now we actually can have information, and I'm not ashamed to bring my notes, by the way. I'm just curious, when your team is curating solutions for healthcare providers, when you're approaching how a nurse solves a patient's problem and how a doctor solves a problem, those are two very different entities, although they're solving for the same person. Walk us through how you're merging those into one to get to a solution that helps the patient at the end of the day.
It's interesting. Like you're right, and it's a very common thing right now. So this is very interesting because the average doctor's visit is modeled in the United States as 15 minutes. Okay, every single thing. It's 15-minute appointment times, and usually the doctor, on that 15
Yeah.
minutes, there's like probably
Something
30, 40 minutes of
crazy.
prep work. The nurse practitioner, the nurses do things, and the doctor comes in and out kind of thing. Like, do you have any questions, right? Well, 80% of the patients are walking in with a printed out 20 questions from ChatGPT that has gone through the records and stuff. And half the time, unfortunately, the doctors haven't had the time to review it because they're running 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, right? So this is going to create this. It's a good thing because what it's doing is actually challenging the system in the way it's built. Now you're
Yeah.
empowering the consumer, empowering the patient with more tools and more data. So I'm a huge fan of all the ChatGPT for health or any of these other things. You can connect your medical records from different things and it can give you personalized insight and stuff. Now, I don't think we are in a point where healthcare, where AI can replace the human touch when it comes to healthcare. If you really think about it, healthcare is not information transfer. It's not just summarizing medical charts and knowing what to do. It's how you feel when you see the doctor, when they tell you, don't worry about it, it's going to be fine. That has psychological impact on how the patient reacts, right? There's a lot of these placebo studies where, like, it's not the medication, it's the care that you provide that makes a difference, right? So all of that is not going to get changed.
Mhm.
But what this does in the short term is it's going to put so much pressure on the system. The doctors cannot have 15-minute appointments. They have to be more informed because chances are the patient's going to be more informed in their condition than their own, than themselves. This is going to happen with, like, when you're modeling, if you're an actuary in a health plan, you're trying to actually model risk and the cost of care kind of a thing. All of that math goes out of the window because the patient's going to come in with 20 questions. You better be ready, right? Now we have to think about how do you take the so that's the pressure on the system. But the other good thing is this is what you need, because the number one the number one factor that impacts people's health is your self-interest in your own health. It is not the best doctor, it is not the best food, it is just general awareness and how you change your behavior based on the information you receive to take care of yourself. I think that is going to be the good unlock that's going to happen with AI, empowering everybody to, like if I get a blood test done and, I got like 20 panels come back and I have all these numbers, and if there's like everything is red, I'll probably pick two or three and then Google it and stuff like that in the previous world, right? Now, or I'll wait for the appointment for that doctor. It'll take 2 months, and getting appointments is a problem. And they'll say, yeah, you got to go see a cardiologist, and you go get a cardiologist appointment, all that stuff. Now, I upload all of that thing. I get a punch list of saying, hey, talk about your HDL ratio here, and talk about your this thing here. You might want to actually consider a calcium scan because your triglycerides are high, or something like that, right? So now you have more information to direct your agency to focus on the things as an individual, as a patient. So I think that's the good side of this, which is like increasing the awareness. And like, did you know, for example, I didn't know this before, but 70% of all the cancers are actually preventable through lifestyle choices. And we think of cancer as a deadly disease. Like 70% of that, of all kinds of cancers, are preventable in some form, either by changing your lifestyle, your socioeconomic conditions, or your determinants of health, whatever. But you don't know. I don't know what I should do. I don't know if they do that, what will happen, right? So AI has the ability to just increase the engagement of the average patient in the system around the world. The number one problem is the patients are not engaged in the system. The system happens to the patient, right? Now we have an opportunity to turn that around. Consumerization of healthcare, consumerization, the empowerment of the patient, that's going to happen. That's one side of it. Short term, it's going to be a lot of pain for the health systems, for the health plans, for the managed care organizations, because patients are going to come up informed and they're going to ask you tough questions, and you better be ready to get them answered, right? So I think it's a net positive. It's a great thing. And I just think it's going to go through this evolution, and we'll hopefully get into a world where like we'll turn healthcare from being healthcare is mostly sick care. You just take care of the sick. What healthcare has the ability to do with AI powering as an infrastructure layer is to become more preventative and not episodic, become more long-term care, become more lifestyle care, rather than it's not going to be just lifespan that we'll be managing. It'll be health span. Like, how do you remain healthy long enough, and all of that stuff. So I think we're entering this golden era of healthcare from a lot of different ways.
I am excited because I'm looking at the pharmacies that are coming online. I'm looking at how care is turning. It's really exciting because in my head I have had this idea where I'm thinking there's going to be a day where I can talk to all my providers the same day and the same language, right, on one platform, right? And that would be golden, because now we reduce error, which has killed a lot of people, at least in the US, in healthcare, right? And as these people get to a place where they can be on the same platform, I don't have to worry about my oncology not talking to my general physician, or how long it takes for their information, right? It's live. And so that's the exciting part. But we're talking about healthcare, but I want immigrants to remember that the ideas we're sharing translate across every platform of how we live life, right? And those changes are happening, they're coming, or yes, you immigrant listening are going to be that change that we're looking forward to, right?
Yes. No, I think this is be the change you want to see in the world, right? Like, was that Mahatma Gandhi who said that, or I think Barack Obama repeated it. So yeah, I think you're entering an era of no excuses, where you have the tools to do almost anything you want. All you need is the agency and the grit to see it through, right? I think we're definitely entering a golden era of humanity, and I think it's going to be scary at first, but I think we'll normalize it. We're really good as a species to figure this out, right? I think we've figured it out so many times. I think we'll do it again.
Yeah, I think they say there's no creature that has learned how to adapt as fast as human beings can adapt to whatever environment you subject them to. Looking back at your book initiative that you started writing with your son a few years ago, now let's project that 5 years ahead. What do the next few years look like? What's giving you the greatest hope for immigrant families, and what concerns should most have?
there's a lot of hope in for, as I said, if you have the agency, the will to make a difference to you, your families, your society, your community, there is a lot of hope. There is a lot of hope uh, because you have the tools. You have the tools are accessible, not exorbitantly expensive, but you have to have the agency. You have to feel it. You have to go, and it has to be your idea. The flip side of this is, I think I worry about, we'll get into a so just think about, like, all the things that are happening in AI, be it in healthcare, be it in industrial AI and robotics and stuff. Almost all the things that you don't want to do as a human being, you will now have the ability to create or have an AI do it for you, right? Almost everything. And eventually you'll get to a point that almost everything we do that is tied to our identity as a worker or an employee or yeah, or someone who is participating in the society can be done with AI. It's just a matter of time. So the big question is going to be, what will you do, right, when that happens? And how do you not use, if for example, if you don't have to toil in the fields for 7 hours every day to do the crop thing in there. Now you can have two choices. One, you can sleep out the whole day and not worry about it, let the machines do it, and you'll be fine. Or you can look at saying, man, I just have unlock this 7 hours in my life. How do I apply it to things that I haven't been able to do before? How do I go and do things that I haven't been able to do before? And I think this is an existential question for humanity. And again, back to our earlier comment, we'll figure it out. I don't, worry about us not figuring it out. But the rate of change is going to be so fast. It's going to come faster than we all think. And of course, as in any transformation of societies, some parts of the society will be ready for it. Some parts of the society will not be ready for it. So having a conscious mindset of saying, how will this affect me? And how do I, if you just have the abundance opportunity mindset, you'll be fine. Just go look at it and stuff. If you take a defensive mindset, it's going to be hard and it's going to be challenging. But I think, look, 95% of the people are going to figure this out. It's going to be fun.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm very hopeful. So, Ganesh, I want us to leave our audience with something immediately useful. I mean, the last hour we've had a really profound conversation. I'm really, really grateful. But imagine that you're in a room, three people who are listening, right? An immigrant working parent, an immigrant small business owner, and a first or second generation college student. What is the one action each one of them should take tomorrow morning to be able to begin preparing for what I am starting to believe is going to be a predominantly AI economy?
Yeah. What's one thing? There's so many things, but what's one thing you can do? I think might sound a little abstract, but turn inward, know yourself better. Know what your 1% is. What are you that you're going to be 1% on? And some of them, you may be early enough in your career or your life to actually get to 1%, but there is, what are you most interested in? What are you really good at? What are you, the combination of, I'm really good at something, the world wants it, and I'm interested and I enjoy doing that, right? Find that thing about yourself and then go to town with AI. Just go all in on this thing, right? I think that's one way to do it. Now, I think also on a personal basis, I would say start developing and actively developing the critical thinking, the ability to actually, be criticize output from AI. I mean, so that you have to start working on the innate human skills, like trusting your gut. I mean, it is so mundane to think about it, but in the world, most people today just trust what the map says or something else says and stuff, right? When you're actually doing it, we forget to trust our gut. Trust your gut, right? So things like that are like turn inward is the number one thing you should probably think of, and then embrace it. Like just go try AI, work with it, and use it in everything that you do. Find out which one it's good at and which one it's not for yourself. And it's a process of self-discovery, and it's also a process of how you co-work with AI that you need to figure out. Yeah, I think it's a golden era. Let's just go all in.
I think that is one really hard skill for people to learn. Like being able to trust your gut, for me, it takes a lot of practice and repetition. I'm so glad you brought us here as a commonality for what the three individuals can share, right? The ability to be able to look inward and really trust in themselves, because that is one of the hardest skills to learn. We have found our moat. We want to bring the moat to the marketplace. Now, for you and I'm going to say figuring out funding is probably one of the easiest place, but how do we bring our ideas to the marketplace?
Depends on what the idea is, but there is profound wisdom in human beings. Talk to people, especially in the age of AI. A lot of people are building things and having AI do it, and they feel good about it, like I'm producing and things like that. Go talk to the person who you want to actually talk to. Engage with people. Like the answers are actually much simpler than we think. And I think it's an active muscle you have to develop in the age of this technology driven world to be really human again, to really, get into. So, how do you get your ideas to market? Make a list of 100 people and go talk to them about your idea. You will find connections and ability and opportunities just in those conversations that you will not find if you just go and survey the Reddit streams to find out whether an idea is good or not. The other thing is a classic thing in entrepreneurship, right? Which is like, you want to see if something works, ship it, put it out in the hands of the people, right? Don't ideate it, don't sit on it, take the action, put it out there, and then be ready to actually receive feedback, right? That's, I think, the most. How do you get your ideas to market? Just ship it, ship the idea, get it out there, talk to people, get in front of people. Yeah.
So glad. So glad you made it for us, man. This has been
Thank
great.
you for having me, Martin. This was a wonderful, conversation, and I just loved how we explored into so many different things, and doing a great job. So thank you.
I'm not even halfway there. But listen, I want to be respectful of your time, and promise me you'll come back again, because we have so much
I
more
would
to
love
talk
that.
about.
I would love to come back. Let's actually do it. Thank you so much for trying to squeeze me in. And like I know my schedule has been a little crazy, so I appreciate you having me on it. And we'll be back for part two.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. So before we sign off, tell our listeners who you are and where they can find you on
You
social
can
media.
find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. I'm also on X, Ganesh Padmanabhan, my full name. Yeah, drop me a note. I post regularly. I'm pretty vocal on social media, mostly around AI and business and stuff too, and healthcare specifically. And yeah, check out what we do at Autonomize AI, and tell me what you think, and what are you guys facing, or what you're seeing in healthcare. What other problems should we be actually tackling and solving? So I'd love to hear back from many of the audience.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Radical immigrants, you heard it from Ganesh himself. Now, here's a challenge for him. Just taking from his conversation. Talk about your ideas, and above everything, shape it. Bring your idea to the marketplace, right? Sir, thank you. I truly, truly do appreciate you. This is what makes you a radical immigrant. So thank you, and see you next time. All right, bye-bye. Thank you.